77 years ago today, January 7th, 777, Nikola Tesla passed away in the New Yorker hotel, one of the greatest living minds of all time. This guy was an absolute genius whose just span of knowledge was from the philosophical, metaphysical to the actual reality in a way that nobody else knew. He mastered science absolutely, and electricity especially. And so I have a theory today that bridges the Trumps, John G. Trump, Donald Trump, and Nikola Tesla with tARTaria. And this is, remember, keep in mind, this is apolitical, not political. You don't have to judge me on anything. I'm not going to go into any avenues like that. This is just purely theoretical and fun. And this is a little Van de Graaff underneath two of his electric balls. So we're just going to have fun with this. I don't want anyone to hate me because I mentioned the name of our president. But I really think I have a couple ideas that I'd like to get out there and maybe showing some of the connections that could possibly exist with the release of all this tARTaria knowledge and this whole realm of thought coinciding with Donald J. Trump's presidency, and when the importance of basically being a creative person and a drive-filled person like Donald Trump and having an uncle like this, John G. Trump. Nikola Tesla passed away 77 years ago, and John G. Trump was one of the incredibly lucky people to be able to enter his establishment, look at all his holdings in the local warehouses, in his house, look at all his creations, and then basically write the FBI reports that would later come out like 5 years ago. So Tesla died in his hotel room, and this guy was just an absolute master. And he went out loving his white pigeon. And look at this is I think one of the last pictures of him, and he's just making everyone laugh. Everyone just looks so pleased to be with this presence of just an absolute master of the universe. He really was the master of the universe in his time and forever will be. And this is his room 3327, which is funny because it's similar to The Shining. And I actually went here for the Tesla convention once, and when I turned the corner to this room, I actually dropped to my knees. And I couldn't believe, I basically felt like I was smacked with a force that I had no control over. And I heard that I was not the only one that happens to. I literally went around all the hallways and was putting my face on the walls, putting my hands on the walls. Something felt unbelievably magical about his creative zone. It was a magical room, 3327. And just this guy created things that were dedicated for the world, and his purpose was, to really make things that the companies couldn't benefit from, the people could benefit from. And after he got stiffed, he realized that. But look at this Van de Graaff generator, which in connection with the tARTarian tops of buildings, there could be some relation and connection here. I'm not positive, but you read all this, check how they work. It's really cool. Friction, and then it generates electricity and power. And the thing that's cool at the bottom is it says the bigger the ball and the further from the ground it is, you build up more charge. So think about all these really tall towers, these tARTarian tall towers. This is the biggest one, I think, that's around in the Museum of Science in Boston. MIT, John Trump, biggest Van de Graaff generator. He was a big part of that. And these are some primitive designs here. But back to that, talking about, so these could have been in everybody's house. But speaking of different kind of connections to the tops of these buildings, the tops of some of these so-called churches and ancient structures that have been getting blasted throughout time, is what if, right now these Van de Graaff kind of things and these Tesla inventions that he had, his Tesla Wardenclyffe Tower, what if they were kind of primitive rediscoveries of this ancient technology? And these people inevitably figured out that, they figured out the circle, and that was maybe for kids and for those fireplaces, those electrical ether generating power places that don't look like fireplaces, where they had two different things just like this. And I think they were generating stuff just like this, generating power and light. But either way, they knew that maybe these were the primitive forms of those ancient creations that they've been destroying, those things at the tops of buildings that connect with the dome at the top as being the ultimate kind of thing. And they discovered that, a ball works nice, but a really intricately carved golden ratio pattern works even better. Here is the documented moment when Professor Bean discovers the power of the Van de Graaff generator. And this was discovered by Van de Graaff in 1929, and Tesla passed away in 1943. So there's some difference there, and it may, I'm thinking that maybe being inspired by Van de Graaff, John G. Trump inevitably did what he had to do in order to be that guy that was there when Tesla passed away, right there looking at all these inventions so that they could write the report and inevitably see what's up. So Tesla, this kind of just shows the Google trends of particular terms between 2004 and the present day. So that's Tesla on the rise. tARTarian architecture all kind of happens around 2018, and same with tARTaria. It had a little peak at the beginning, which I think is just kind of a blip and an error, but this later on it shows it again. It really came back in full force. And this is the population of New York as published on Wikipedia. And so it really is a very interesting thought, because this Starfort, how old is this? Is there an ancient civilization that was in New York a long time ago and had all these things? John Levy showed some areas of bridges that look like ancient machinery that just is undocumented. I mean, people are just now realizing that there's a Starfort under the Statue of Liberty. Like, it's just now starting to make sense. And so, I don't know, there's all kinds of different pictures and images from back in the day which can always be altered. You can never totally trust the photographic record. And this is one of the oldest surviving maps of back when it was New Netherlands, and you can see there's a Starfort right there, and then to the right there's even just like Starfort barracks over there, and then they just leave the rest of that area void, like there's nothing there. And this was supposedly during the time when the population was about in the thousands, like 2,000, 3,000. So there's no telling, they can easily eradicate buildings, decimate things, repopulate, do so many things. And that's around the same time when things were being destroyed all over Europe, and those buildings like that still remain in the background, that church building, and they are reminiscent of the ancient ones in Belgium and all those places which date to like the 1000 or just so many different years, way before America was supposed to be anything. And so New York always kind of boggles my mind. And the fact that the Trumps are big in real estate, John Trump's brother, Fred Trump, Donald Trump's dad, was big into real estate, and it was his parents' business before that. But I have a feeling that he was at a very young age entering into some of these old real estate buildings and really kind of seeing things in a way that most kids and most people didn't really get to see. In fact, Donald Trump was probably one of the only children or people of a young age that was fascinated with real estate enough and with the connections enough to be able to explore some of these things. And he did. And I think a lot of these pictures that are coming out during this time and are being re-examined by all of us, a lot of them look like real estate shots. They look like they're advertising real estate, and because they're very formal, they're very precise. They show like everything in a very nice light. They really look like either postcards or real estate cards. And this kind of, I always see the advertisements for the terracotta artists and projects, and then different projects like the iron people. And so these were always advertised in the local magazines and the architecture digests. And so were they capable of building all these things? Was it just a gradual progression? I really don't know. I have no idea. And they have all these different pictures of the subway being created, because I find the subway to be very unique. And this explains a lot about these tiles that I'll show in these next pictures. But some of the abandoned subways, like, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of technology to create a subway, to create these tiles, to create something that while you have buildings up on top of it, you're digging under and everything's being safe. So were these ancient, like the catacombs, and they just kind of repurposed them and rededicated them? Are they signs of an ancient civilization? I really don't know. They treat them, they've got like carriages and carts going down them. People kind of explore them nowadays, but how far do they go? I'm sure they are blocked off to the general public, and even people breaking in may not have recorded or been able to publish things. But this city is just an amazing city. Being around it, it just has such a power to it. And Donald Trump grew up all around it. He grew up exploring these things and really asking questions about it. And he might, out of anyone in the world, he might have the answers to the true past of New York, or this true past of America, where these tARTarian things are. And maybe him and his administration are slowly releasing it, because the fake news epidemic has become very apparent in the Trump era. And it is something that I've known for a long time. A lot of people that are paying attention know not to trust anyone on TV, and they've known that their entire lives. But now the general population is catching on to the massive amount of lies that are coming out. So in order for people to gradually accept things like America wasn't founded in this interesting way we've been taught through shows and plays like 1776 and all these things, and if we were to all find out that it was something far different than what we've been taught in our schools forever, it would shock people to their core. So gradually releasing these old pictures from all over America that show signs and hints is kind of helping us all really grasp the concept at first into an inevitable disclosure, which hopefully will come. And maybe they did make all these buildings. I really don't know. Like, this is a lot of human effort, and there's very few construction shots compared to the amount of literally professional real estate, perfectly symmetrical, awesome just shots that just showcase the grandeur of these masterful things. Some of them look like castles. Where are they getting all this stone? How are they doing this all on horse and carriage? This is a lot to do with horse and carriage, and they could take some trains in, but still, this is, again, some of it's Romanesque. And was Trump able to look in the basements of this, like, oh, hey, mom and dad, I'll be back, I'm going to explore. Oh, what's this? Oh, son, here's what that is. Then the uncle guides his own path towards becoming an electrical engineer, because he probably saw these mechanisms, these buildings that were gigantic machines, and how they worked. And that's not the way they work now, but they grew up seeing this probably ancient way. And Tesla kind of brought it out and got slammed down every time he tried to make something public or make something go against the will. And I'm sure John Trump and all of them had the same kind of hand over them, like fist just pushing them down for wanting to disclose information when you can't. You don't want to get killed, you don't want to get your life ruined, and you want to gather more information. So you have to play the game. Like, so in Trump's reports that you'll see, the FBI reports, he always mentions that, oh, there was like some philosophical stuff found and a bunch of other stuff, but he never really tells what was found. And look at this ornamentation. This stuff is amazing. And is that just plaster? Is that just terracotta, simple kind of stuff? Or is it real marble and stone that is going to last forever? And these tops, are they different forms of more technical Van de Graaff generators or power generators or ether generators and gatherers? And this old book referred to these as temples, tombs, and angels at the top of these buildings. So temples, tombs, and angels, and a lot of these buildings that became the Federal Reserve and all these things, and they had this angel, godlike architecture all over them. These were some libraries that almost all looked mud-flooded to me, and they were from a different book. And these again just showed the building. It looks like, again, like real estate shots. The photographers had a purpose, and I'm sure they were also to document anything that was destroyed was probably definitely to be documented somewhere and restricted. And that is, I think, maybe what we might be seeing is the release. And again, this isn't 100% proof. It's just a random theory. I have millions of theories. This is just one of the many. And it relates to this area of thought. Trump, tARTaria, and Tesla. Because all this talk is really peaking during his presidency. His connection to real estate, his connection to the energy generation of Van de Graaff and his father, the X-ray. They clearly saw Tesla's material and they learned from it, and anybody that's normal and creative like Trump would ask his uncle, please tell me everything you know, please. I would sit for hours and hours with my uncle if they had any type of amazing information like this. Even just simple stories, I sit forever with family members. But if they had the power and knowledge of this family, I would listen forever, and I'm sure Trump did. We may never know if all these are connected, but Tesla lived in the New Yorker hotel, which at one point was described as a machine, a fully functioning machine. I believe he helped it become even more efficient. And that's what buildings were. They were almost like sustainable, like machines with power and everything, heat, all kinds of energy circulation generated. And these are the pictures that we see a lot of times, these guys on these really high beams overlooking the city with a wrench. Like, was each one of these bolts that keep up these skyscrapers done by hand with a wrench? Or were there any power tools here? Like, I don't see. This looks staged, kind of like a photograph that could have been done in various different Photoshop-ish ways. But I really don't know. Whatever we've been fed with photographs. It could have been touched up and messed with. There's really no telling. All the information is just so elusive and so under tight scrutiny. And this is a lot of people. You can examine these Tesla kind of examinations from the FBI. These were some of the things that they released, which tell about his technologies and what Trump found after he went into it. And this is just basically the FBI's file on Tesla, which they released. And a lot of the things are actually written by John J. Trump. And so he was telling about different things, and in all of these he basically states that, oh, there was nothing of importance that if it got in the hands of our enemies would be done. But they mention a lot of philosophical works, a lot of theoretical things of Tesla's. But that's like saying, like, finding the theoretical things, like books and philosophical thoughts of, pick a genius, Leonardo da Vinci or a god. Not really, but it's like finding, there's a lot of value in that, and something that they completely discredited. And so I'm sure they took all his information, all his files, all his apparatus, and dissected them and discovered X-ray from it, used it to their own type of inventions and to benefit themselves. And I'm sure he told a lot to Trump. I just know he did. And even just telling him, your little nephew, that there was this guy, went into his place, like this guy Tesla, true genius, like the things he did could power the entire world without anyone like knowing. Oh, why don't they do that anymore? Because of money, son, and all these other powers. And and Trump has a lot to play with other kind of powers that are not free energy techniques. So this theory has a lot of holes in it, just like every theory. And that's why I don't bank my life on this theory. It's just a random bunch of thoughts and random connections that came in. So don't hate me for this, please. Just a random thought. I believe this just as much as I don't believe it. But a lot of things are interesting. And a lot of people are doing a lot of articles on Trump, Tesla, and the aliens and flying saucers. And so I relate this all to the Space Force. And when you think about Space Force, think about what that means. I now no longer refer to outer space, the floating place, as just space. I refer to that as a void. If that is to exist, what it is more of a void or a vacuum than space. What we have down here on Earth is space. What we need more of is space. What we inevitably found when we found Americas was more space, supposedly. What we think is beyond the poles is more space, maybe even inside the poles, like Hollow Earth, more space. So to have a space force, and which is almost another term for ether, like if you could have a force, the energetic force that comes from space, comes from the area, our space, our living space, then it would be called ether. It would be called Space Force, the force of this space that we all live in. We all have just enough space, whatever it is, whether it's huge or small, we have it. This is our living space. So a lot of people are like, oh, he's going to have Star Wars, Star Trek. I don't look at it that way. I think of it as a nice play on words for inevitably some slowly releasing and developing this technology, and maybe this realization that there is more space. He wanted to buy Greenland. That's also another hint. He knows what's up. He knows the proximity to the poles is important, and what's beyond the poles is even more important. He can't say it because they'll think he's nuts. But maybe in due time he will, and we'll learn about it. And so here, check out some of these clips. If you feel free to stop on any of these, just a collection of different random clippings that I found from that all kind of shed light on a bunch of different things, and who raided Tesla's papers after he died. And there was mysterious people that broke into his safe right after he died. And it's a very interesting story, and you never know what's true, and what's written here and what was released could be totally different than what really happened. This could just be a story, and the truth could be just existing in the heads of people who it's passed on to, or in a different distant file somewhere. So maybe he passed it on to Trump. Who knows? But maybe not. Maybe none of this is just all whatever. But this is pretty interesting, and a nice drawing of the American skyscraper as the modern Tower of Babel. Just kind of a little funny old comic from the 1900s, I believe, early 1900s. Pretty interesting. But while we honor this Tesla today on his 77th year after his passing, it's just really great to acknowledge this guy and really hope that his his power and the information that he left somehow got through to someone, maybe John G. Trump, and then maybe he passed it on to someone, just so someone in power knows the importance of helping out the people with technology like Tesla did, that's designed for everyone, not for the ultimate profit of one person or one organization. Designed for everyone, the way the ancients used to do it. I'm sure they used their power to benefit everyone. It was probably just like a regular utility. So I'd like to show you all a drawing that I did based on this by Athanasius Carcheri, the Jesuit, who Leonardo da Vinci-esque figure who did a lot of amazing things, and it inspired me to do this new drawing right here, which kind of relates to today, in the Tesla with the Tartarian Tower, the obelisk, the angels, Lady Liberty, Om. Tesla really believed in Om, the pyramids, the power of the spheres. It almost looks like a universal nipple too, oops, with a beam of light coming out of it in the global world or whatever it is. Who knows? It's just more subconscious kind of meanderings with some great intentions. And intentions themselves are a powerful force, basically, of divine nature. And the mysteries are abound. And I think Donald Trump may know the importance of enlightening a world and guiding a world towards a beautiful path and with great intentions. And I'm not saying he's definitely doing this. I would believe that it would be amazing if anyone in his power and in any position of power were to think like this and were to think on the global scale in the terms of Tesla and with good intentions for all, building everyone up, clean water, clean air, all these things that people promise us, and I hope they live up to it. And this drawing I created in November 2016, right around the time of the election, in hopes that that would inevitably happen and I could summon some kind of magic and maybe the truth would get unleashed during this new era of enlightenment and renaissance. One thing you gotta say is that he is great for exposing frauds and pathological liars, and so if he were to tell us about our true history and release the things in a way that everybody was able to grasp, and we could obtain the true potential of our humanity and our ancient legacy, then so be it. Bless you all.